Thank you, everyone. So I'm Steve Jury, Somerset Council, Nature Recovery and Partnerships Manager, and my talk is on understanding local nature recovery strategies. So what they are, why they matter, and how it will guide local action for nature's recovery. So next slide, please, Graham. So this will encompass why do we need a local nature recovery strategy? What is the purpose of LNRS? What will the LNRS do and what will it not do? I'll give some examples from the Somerset LNRS, and I'll also talk a little bit around how will the LNRS be delivered. Next slide, please. So as set out in the UK State of Nature Report 2023, nature is in trouble. So England is considered to be one of the most nature depleted countries in the world. It ranked 228th out of 240 countries in a study commissioned by the Natural History Museum. It has experienced a significant loss of biodiversity in the last 50 years alone, with around 13% of species in England threatened with extinction. Most of the important habitats for nature are in poor condition, but more optimistically, the report does say that it's not too late and that restoration projects can and do have clear benefits for nature and people, as well as climate change mitigation and adaptation. And the Environment Act in 2021 brought into law requirements to halt the decline of species and improve our natural environment. And Somerset is one of 48 strategy areas in England that are required by the Environment Act to develop a local nature recovery strategy for their area. Next slide, please. So the purpose of LNRSs, they are new strategy system of spatial strategies for nature's recovery, as brought in by the Environment Act. They will help reverse the ongoing decline of nature and biodiversity in England. This decline has profound implications for the long-term health, well-being, and livelihood of communities. They will provide a clear place-based plan for restoring and protecting nature in a way that supports both people and the environment. And this is then used to target resources effectively so that public funding and private investment can be directed to those areas that will make the biggest difference for nature. Next slide. So what will the LNRS do and what will it not do? Next slide. So two most important things it does are it identifies priorities and it maps opportunities. So it sets out the most important local priorities for nature recovery through a structured, evidence-based and locally informed process. So for example, this might include restoring wetlands, planting woodlands, or creating urban green spaces. It also links those local priorities with national environmental targets. So for example, there is a national environment target to increase woodland cover in the UK from 14.5% to 16.5% by 2050. Secondly, so mapping opportunities, it will produce a map showing where actions would have the most benefit for wildlife, people, and the climate. It highlights existing important habitats and it shows opportunities for new habitats or improvements. Next slide. So furthermore, once it's done this will then guide investment and action. So it provides a blueprint for farmers, landowners, councils, and developers to align their projects with nature recovery goals. So once published, it becomes the reference document used by funders, planners, land managers, and delivery bodies so that future spending and projects align with the agreed map and priorities. rather than being scattered ad hoc. It supports collaboration, so it encourages local partnerships between councils, community groups, environmental organisations, businesses, and landowners. So, by giving everyone the same evidence, the same map, and the same agreed priorities to work from, instead of each actor pursuing separate agendas in isolation. Next slide, please. And although, whilst nature recovery is a core aim, LNRSs also promote wider environmental benefits, the so-called ecosystem services, so such as improving water and air quality, reducing flood risks and improving climate resilience, and providing better access to nature for people's health and well-being. So in short, an LNRS tells everyone where and what to do to recover nature locally, making sure that the effort adds up to meaningful ecological and societal outcomes. Next slide. So in terms of why the local nature recovery strategy is important for everyone, so for communities, it gives communities a clear picture of where nature can be restored or enhanced. It helps local groups, schools and volunteers plan projects that connect habitats, improve public spaces, and make villages and towns more resilient to flooding, heat, and pollution. For people, it supports healthier, greener places to live, so more trees, cleaner water, richer wildlife, and easier access to nature close to home. And it also supports practical benefits, so shade in hot water, natural flood defences, and landscapes that absorb carbon and store water. So LNRSs influence how land and nature-based solutions improve local health, safety, and quality of life. Next slide. So for landowners and farmers, the LNRS identifies where land management can deliver the greatest benefit for wildlife, soil health, and the wider community, whilst remaining fully voluntary. It helps guide funding opportunities such as environmental land management schemes and private nature finance, so that efforts and investment go to the right places. And for local decision makers, it provides an evidence-based shared map of priorities for nature recovery across the county, so that councils, public bodies, and organisations can use it to coordinate plans, target grants, and ensure local development and infrastructure support biodiversity goals. Next slide. What it does not do, so it does not create new legal designations or protections. It does not regulate or impose obligations. It guides rather than compels. So being mapped as an opportunity area does not force landowners to take action, change land use, or manage land in a certain way. It doesn't provide funding directly. It can influence where funding should go, but it doesn't guarantee investment by itself. It doesn't replace planning or environmental law, so it doesn't override local plans, permits, or statutory protections. It doesn't in itself deliver projects. It is a strategy and evidence base. Implementation depends on landowners, partners, and funders, and it doesn't freeze the map permanently. The LNRS will be updated over time as evidence and circumstances change. So in short, an LNRS guides where and how nature recovery is best delivered, but it does not compel, fund, permit, or directly implement actions. Next slide. So these are some of the examples of priorities of nature recovery. So across the 48 local nature recovery strategies across the country, you'll have one for your region, your county. So priorities could be increased biodiversity in urban areas, nature-based solutions used to address flood risk, air quality and heat stress, and so on. And these are all developed locally with lots of consultation and engagement locally. And next slide. And so those priorities are the outcome we wish to see achieved. The actions or the measures to achieve those priorities are also listed in an LNRS. And I'm conscious I've got a few slides here, Graham, so I might speed up or skip some of them because we do want to leave a bit of time for Q&A. But I'll let me know, Graham, when I've got 5 minutes left, and I'll adjust accordingly. So these are some of the potential measures that support the priorities: increase biodiversity in urban areas and improve connection to nature. Next slide. So what is in the Somerset Local Nature Recovery Strategy? Next slide. So the LNRS, all LNRSs are formed of two main parts: a written report, statement of biodiversity priorities, and the local habitat map. So the habitats, priorities, and potential measures in the document in the report identify what we want to do. The potential measures are then presented on the map, showing where these would deliver the greatest benefit. Next slide. So I'll just skip over this one very quickly, so that all LNRSs conform to the DEFRA guidance on what they should contain, and that slide just lists what they should contain. Next slide. And there's also, we look at species, endangered species. We draw up a short list of priority species, in our case in Somerset, that are endangered. And some of these require their own bespoke measures. So we also have a section on those species that require additional bespoke measures. Next slide. And then the very important element is the map. So this contains two layers. So it contains those areas that are already designated, the already important areas, known in the jargon as areas of particular importance for biodiversity. And then most importantly, it contains those areas that I have identified as the most important areas to restore and create new habitats. And these are called areas that could become of particular importance. Next slide. So this is just an example of the map. So the coloured areas are those areas that the opportunity areas that could become of particular importance, coloured according to different habitat types. And you can click on any of those and you can see there is a preferred action and measure, and there may be some alternative options to do on that site. So this is really the core part of the LNRS. Next slide. So we've seen that the LNRS contains what we're going to do. We've seen it contains where we're going to do it. And the final element is who is going to make it happen. Next slide. And in the Somerset LNS, we have a chapter on how different end user groups can use the LNRS. I'm sure all LNRSs will contain this. Next slide. So, for example, we have a section on individuals, community groups, and businesses, how they can use it. We have some case studies that we include as well. Next slide. We also have a section on town and parish councils, and there's a case study there from Town Council. Next slide. We'll very briefly just outline some of the ways in which individuals, community groups, and businesses can use an LRS. And well, I won't spend too much time on this because we're a bit short of time, but those are the ways that we have outlined that individuals, community groups, and businesses can use an LRS. Next slide. And likewise, and then the next two slides might be of more interest to you. Next slide. How a parish council can use a LNRS. So it can be used to inform local projects and priorities, guide responses to planning proposals, support funding bids and partnerships. Next slide. Guide neighbourhood plans, connect with landowners and community groups, and contribute local knowledge. I'm skimming over these, but I'm assuming you will be sending these slides around, Graham, to everyone to read at their leisure. Next slide. And how will it be delivered? We're on the last couple of slides now. Next slide. So there are delivery mechanisms that are based in law. I'm sure you've all heard of biodiversity net gain, where developers have to result in a 10% net gain in biodiversity of anything that they destroy on site. And those opportunity areas identified are considered areas of strategic significance. Somebody's got their mic at the moment. And so it makes it attractive for both developers and the landowners to choose those sites. If developer has to look off-site for where to implement biodiversity net gain, those opportunity areas identified through an LNRS are more likely to be chosen. There is a duty on public authorities to conserve and enhance the environment. This is a legal duty, and they will use the LNRS to inform their relevant regulatory decisions. And also it influences planners, both in local plan development. So local planning authorities need to take the LNRS into account when developing their local plans. And also they need to use the LNRS as an evidence base that may be a material consideration in planning decisions. So the LNRS carries some weight in the planning process. Next slide. And so in summary, there's a whole range of delivery mechanisms of which the LNRS outcomes will be delivered. So through planning and regulation, which I've summarized in the previous slide, through public funding, so agri-environment schemes, ELMS, and other grants that pay farmers, landowners, community bodies, may well reference the LNRS as we move forward. Private finance and offset, so developers, utilities, and corporates use the LNRS map to target compensated or voluntary nature investment to the right places. Partnership projects, so catchment groups, NGOs, councils, and landowners working together to co-deliver restoration of nature-based solutions in the priority zones that have been identified within the LNRS. And finally, to say there will be iterative monitoring and revision. Progress is tracked and the strategy updated, so resources keep flowing to the highest leverage actions. And final slide. So the government have stated that the LNRSs will be reviewed in 3 to 10 years and republished, updated with any new evidence that has arisen. And we will measure progress. We will be asked, local authorities will be asked to monitor against national and local targets, and definitely will be providing more information on that in the very near future on how they to report on progress. And that is the final slide. So a bit of a rush through. Apologies for that, but hope you found that interesting.
Peter, absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Steve. And I'm sure there's going to be a host of questions. And I'll let the others get on with it before I ask you all of mine, except just to say that we discovered yours because you sent out a document that says you're going to consult.
Graham, can you mute Lisa Scott, please?
Yeah, doing that. So Somerset is bringing out a consultation period with everybody that's going to be involved. Is that a requirement? Do you think all 48 areas are going to do that?
Yes, so all 48 areas. It is a requirement. So ours is currently out to public consultation for a 6-week period. All have either done it or are in the process of doing it now, or we'll be doing it very shortly. So if in your area you've not heard about it yet, keep an eye out for it, because it will probably come up soon. And we want to use the public consultation as an opportunity to make sure that what we are saying is accurate and evidence-based. So it's a bit of sense checking, really. So it's very important. We've done a lot of public engagement, but not everyone would have seen the draft. We now have a draft. We want to get it sense checked to make sure that when it's published, it's as accurate as it can. It's never going to be perfect, but we want it to be as accurate as it can be.
And my last question for you, Steve, is do you see a lot of communication between you and other NRSs? If someone learns something, does it get passed around, or are you all operating in silos still?
No, very much so. We have a Southwest regional group stretching from Gloucestershire across Wiltshire, Dorset, Somerset, Devon, Cornwall, West of England Combined Authority, where we regularly meet once a month to compare notes. And that's been very useful. And also ensure a degree of consistency across boundaries, because we've been given flexibility in how we produce the maps, what type of modeling we use, how we put them together. So there is a possibility for a degree of inconsistency there, but by working closely together, we make sure that there are no very peculiar, sharp boundary lines at boundaries. So we have been working very closely together, and I hope that will continue as the delivery phase starts.
Right. So once Somerset has decided they're going to share all their data with Parish Online, we can expect it to go nationwide. Splendid. Stuart, would you like to carry on, please?
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to thank Steve for a very interesting whistle-top sort of tour of LNRS. I think fundamentally it's a really good, worthwhile thing to do. Many things worry me about it, though. On the implementation side, a lot seems to rest with the landowners and farmers. And as far as I'm aware, the farmers are being hammered at the moment. The ELMS program has been suspended. That they are not getting the proper funding for land regeneration, hedge planting, this, that, and the other. So, and from a report yesterday, about 40% of farmers are either losing money or just breaking even. I don't think they can be expected to participate in something like this if it is possibly going to affect their bottom line. And my other sort of main query is about how we're measuring the results. We know that we're one of the most nature depleted countries in the world. We are going to implement some of these things. Should we not be measuring the outcomes? And I'm not entirely sure who's going to measure BNG for 10 years, especially if it's offsite. I was wondering if you could comment on those.
Yes, thank you for those questions, Stuart. So in terms of the farmers, I do very much sympathise. I mean, in some rural counties like Somerset, 75% of our farm is farmland. So farmers are really important in terms of delivering nature recovery, but that partly depends on what incentives and funding are available. And you're quite right, some of the ELMS has been certainly paused, if not pulled. So Sustainable Farming Initiative, SFI, was paused. I gather it will be coming back. I think the intention, DEFRA's intention, is to align some of the ELMS schemes moving forward to make reference to LNRS. So potentially, if land is identified on an LNRS map, it may give that farmer, that landowner, if it's part of their land, greater opportunities to tap into some of the agri-environment funding. At the moment, the links aren't there, apart from through landscape recovery schemes. But I think that is the intention. It's interesting, when we ran workshops with farmers, we initially thought they would be quite nervous about having their land identified on an LNRS, in case they were worried about protections and designations. But actually, it appears that the feedback we've had, farmers are more worried if their land isn't identified on an LNRS, because they then think, well, that might reduce their chances of some future funding. But farmers are really important, and it depends so much on the national funding scenario, which is obviously down to government control and government finances. In terms of measuring results, that is important, and DEFRA are very keen for all 48 areas covered by an LNRS to monitor results, because DEFRA have to do their own reporting under the Environment Act on the national targets and how the national targets are being met. So DEFRA's thinking on this is that if all 48 LNRS regions in England, covering the whole of England, can report on what's being achieved locally at a local level, this can then all be collated and feed into the national targets. So we haven't had all the information exactly about how we're going to report, but there is an expectation that local authorities will collect information and report. So those achieved through public funding will probably be reported by the DEFRA arm's length bodies, Natural England, Forestry Commission, Environment Agency. Everything else will need to be collected and reported by local authorities. And finally, BNG, how are we going to measure that? Well, there is I gather there is a legal requirement for contracts to be drawn up when BNG agreements are drawn up, and there will have to be monitoring and surveying at least a couple of times as part of that agreement. It's a long-term agreement. I don't know all the legal detail, but it is a legal requirement. That's what I do understand, and there will have to be some monitoring to ensure that there is change taking place.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Amanda, you're next.
Thank you. And thank you for the presentation. I've been to so many presentations on nature recovery strategies, and I have to say that was one of the clearest I've heard. So thank you for that snapshot. Yeah, very helpful. Thank you. So I'm both a parish councillor and a board member of our Cotswold National Landscape. And my question's a simple one. It's just about understanding the areas. The 48 areas, are they coterminous with unitaries, counties? Which authority boundary is it that has a local nature recovery strategy?
Bit of a tongue twister, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? LRNS is what I'm used to saying.
Yeah. It is upper tier local authorities, but in some areas it's combined authorities. So, for example, we have the West of England Combined Authority, which is Bath and North East Somerset, North Somerset, I think it's South Gloucestershire and Bristol. So generally it's upper tier, but if there is an existing combined authority, it will be the combined authority. And as part of devolution, I think there's a move towards more combined authorities. And the plan is that if new combined authorities are formed, the responsibility for reporting will then fall on the combined authority rather than the constituent existing LNRS regions.
That's superbly helpful. I'm in Gloucestershire, where we have got reorganisation and then devolution to look forward to. So,
Yeah.
And then we've got the not coterminous in any way at all Cotswold National Landscape boundary. So it's very much about partnership working and being aware of each other's data and working together. But what we do have with being a national landscape is we have DEFRA funding to distribute, and so we can enable and sort of lever in some of this change with the help of funding that maybe other areas don't have. So that helps, and it also helps the authorities to work with us as well, because there's that bit of incentive. It'd be nice if it was more widely available to more areas and not just the national landscapes. But I guess we've got to do more than our fair share, if you like. Well, it is a fair share by us doing a lot more because we're in a protected landscape. And so we can contribute so much more.
Absolutely. I think there is an expectation that national landscapes and national parks will do a fair amount of the heavy lifting on this, because they have, they are designated areas for their landscapes. They have a lot of potential for nature recovery, and they have very good partnerships. They have some funding streams in place. And I'm aware that the Cotswold National Landscape are doing some superb work. I've come across some of it. So it's great that they are in that position to be able to do that.
I guess if I may just say one more thing, it's the challenge is getting the parish and town councils within those areas to understand what's being done, and whereas the principal authorities representatives on the board of Cotswold National Landscape are very closely involved with their local nature recovery strategy, the formation, hearing it presented from start to finish. And the implications of it, parish and town councils really don't get to hear it. And when my parish and my parish council was consulted on our Gloucestershire one, which the consultation's now finished, it found it almost too difficult. And in the end, it was delegated to individual councillors to write their own responses in, and who knows what the degree to which people will have looked at it. It almost needs a presentation like you've just given, then a look at the map together in a room and saying, as I looked at mine, my new development, I live in a new development, well, it's 8 years old, and it's down for flood area restoration. In other words, water. Well, short of drowning our new estate, that's not going to happen. So I guess that's the nature of this stage of having a look at it. It's sense checking at this stage, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's sense checking, and that's the sort of feedback that we would hope to get. If something's being earmarked as a sort of flood storage area and it's actually now a development, there's obviously something gone a little bit awry there.
But I guess what I'm saying is that connect is not quite there. That unless we go out to these parish and town councils can be quite small and can be quite what's the word? They're not used to new things necessarily. And if we're just used to looking at planning applications and maybe the local plan, and if we're really lucky, a neighbourhood plan, this is something that's new, and it's kind of the how can we spread scarce resources out so thinly to hold hands to help do this sense checking.
I guess it comes down to resourcing and staff capacity within local authorities. I mean, I know in Somerset we've tried to do some engagement, and as we move to delivery, we hope to do more engagement, particularly with parish councils and clusters of parish councils. In fact, we've just hired 2 graduates, both of whom are on this call, I believe, who I hope will be assisting with that. But it is very important to go out, raise awareness, make sure people are aware that the local nature recovery strategy exists and what opportunities it offers, and that comes down to staff resources within local authorities. But we have got we've got some funding for at least the first year as we transition to delivery. We hope we will secure funding beyond that as well.
Thank you.
Maybe something
you raised a good point. It's very important. Yeah.
Maybe something that Amanda is looking for in the link that Shropshire has put up, Alan Wilson's put up in our chat, that they have prepared a document for all of their parish councils to follow, and I suspect that could be very useful.
Thank you very much.
Shropshire is one of the lead counties I find in climate change and so forth, and they're obviously way ahead on this one, so that might be a very useful link. Does anyone else have any more points they want to raise, please, or questions for Stephen? I'm sorry. Well, there you go, Stephen. You managed to fill the bill and fill the time as well. Thank you so much, as it was a very clear distinction, and I think that the slideshow that you developed will be very, very useful. I'm going to ask you, Steve, if you would please send it to me as a PowerPoint presentation, because then people themselves can use it rather than in a PDF form. There's not much they can do with it from there.
I may have to send it by WeTransfer, Graham, because it won't.
That's fine. Yeah, I'm very happy with that. No problem.
Sure.
In that case, ladies and gentlemen, I would normally at this point cheerfully announce to you what next week's topic of discussion is going to be. But this week, I'm going to say I haven't got the slightest idea, but I'm working on it. So we'll see what we can do. So keep your eyes peeled, and I'm sure we'll come up with something.
Graham, may I raise
Yes.
something as Amanda again? We're currently going through a refresh of our local plan, not least of which because of the housing requirement that's doubled the requirement to build in the Cotswolds. So I'm imagining we're not alone at our planning authority having to go through this. So what it means for parish and town councils is we're reviewing a number of things, including our green space allocations. And I'm just, I don't know if others are doing the same right now, and whether there might be anything about the different designations. So for example, we've got some triple SI. We've got the whole area covered by nature reserve, another bit of scheduled monument, and then we're looking at I think railways. We've got some old embankment that's protected differently, and I'd be really interested to know about the different designations as it relates to both nature and planning. So it kind of follows on from this, but it's also very timely because we're going through it right now. And then we've got the Regulation 19 consultation coming up in the new year. And I would imagine because this has been spurred on by the additional housing requirements, there'll be other areas that are in the same sort of time frame. So it's
For a
just a
brief,
question.
tantalizing moment, Amanda, I thought you were offering to tell us all about it next week, but I see
Ooh.
it's not quite what you had in mind. Thank you for the ideas. I'll go out and see if I can find anybody to fill the bill. And that does remind me that if anybody has any ideas that they'd like to see being discussed, or they have people in mind that they know give good presentations, then I would be delighted to hear from you. And in the meantime, thank you all very much. I will see you next week, I hope.
Thanks, Graham. Thanks, Stephen.
Let's come back and see you all then. Take care.
Thank you
Bye.
as always.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Graham.